It is all yours.
Okay. Bear with me, this does run loud, but I'm heating up my oil for the risotto. We are going to start doing the risotto first. It takes a little longer than everything else does. And you're going to need some chopped onions and some garlic, which I have pre-minced here, your risotto or your flavus rice. You're going to need vegetable broth, which I have right here. I'm out of white wine. I know the recipe calls for white wine, but if you have it, use it. It will add some good flavor. I'm just going to use extra vegetable broth. For mine, some Parmesan cheese at the end, and Italian seasoning, a little bit of olive oil. So this one's going to be a very basic risotto recipe, but it can be used for an abundance of things. You could add mushrooms to it, maybe a little bit of red wine, and some thyme to make it more hearty. You can do vegetable style, you can do Mexican style even, add a little cumin and chili powder, maybe a little bit of corn if your diet allows it. So it's very versatile. That's why I'm keeping it basic, so that you guys can see how to do it, and then you can change any way you like. You'll just have to adjust from there. So currently, you got olive oil in your skillet over medium heat. Mine's already heating up, so I'm already going to add my onions into it. And we're going to saute these till they're a little bit translucent, about 2 minutes. Then add your garlic at that point, because you don't want the garlic to burn.
Okay, my husband is cooking, but this is probably something I've never cooked. So you're in a skillet with olive oil, browning the garlic, right?
The onions. We're sauteing onions.
And what temperature heat again?
Medium heat. See them? See them kind of cooking there a little bit.
Put the oil in first.
Yes, gotta put the oil in. Heat up the oil first.
How much?
About 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Yep. Oh, it's gotta be. As it begins to become aromatic, you can start adding your minced garlic. Should be. I mean, if you really want it garlicky, make it 2 cloves or 1. I'm gonna do 1 for now, and just saute it. Keep it moving. You don't want it to burn. Keep that moving in that pan. Let the garlic kind of come together. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to put the rice in the pan and kind of get it toasted with the onions and the garlic prior to adding the liquid. It gives it a nice little extra flavor.
How much rice?
I believe on the recipe I put 80 grams. A lot of times I go by weight. So it's roughly 1/3 of a cup or so. It should be about that much. So.
Yeah, I didn't print out the recipe.
Okay. We did send those. And if you need them again, we can definitely send those recipes to you again. So,
Yeah, no, I have them. I just, yeah. It's 1 cup dry. Okay,
yes, dry. Okay, so we see, give me a chance to get toasted. If it seems like they're starting to stick, add a little extra olive oil.
That's 1/3 cup. Where's your onions? Can I use extra garlic?
There we go. Starting to get a little bit toasted there. You can smell it even. I can see some of them toasting up, so it's looking really nice. So when we start adding the liquid, you want to add a little bit at a time. You want it to slowly absorb the broth and cook on its own. So just add a little bit at a time.
If she had added the rice, she did. She had done it.
Yes, I put the rice in after I sauteed the onions and the garlic, and I toasted that with the onions and garlic. And you're just going to slowly let it cook, and you're going to slowly let it absorb the liquid. You don't just want to dump all the liquid in at once, because you could end up overcooking it. It could become extremely mushy, so you just want to do a little bit at a time. This is a very traditional way of making even regular risotto. So it's just kind of fun to take your time and make for dinner for everybody.
How much vegetable broth are you using?
I've made a cup and a half.
Okay.
If you're going to use white wine with it, then you would just sub out a quarter cup of the broth for the white wine. And I would add the white wine kind of in the middle towards the end. Here, you see it starting to absorb that liquid. As it starts to look like that and all the liquid is absorbed, add more broth to it and just keep cooking it until it's fully cooked. You don't want it mushy, but you do want it a little bit chewy. It's hard to describe. That's just the way risotto is, and with the fact that we're keeping the natural starch in here, it'll help bring that texture together. We're not going to be rinsing that out. We're going to keep that starch. And of course, mine keeps sticking to my spatula. There we go. When we do the veggie sandwiches, you're going to need ovens turned on to 350. So if you don't have that yet, you might want to turn that on and get that ready to go. Because while I'm cooking this, we can also jump into at least cooking the zucchini and the peppers for the roasted veggie sandwiches. See, that's just coming together so nicely. That.
Okay, so we have the rice started. You said start cooking the vegetables for the sandwiches?
Yeah, I'll do that here in just a second. I just want to make sure that everybody has their ovens on. But as we're cooking this rice, we can at least start getting the zucchini and the peppers cooked, but I'll do that here in just a second.
But I think she was just saying, make sure your oven is preheated, so that way it's ready.
Oh, that's what I missed. Okay.
Right. Yep, sorry about that.
To boil up the ciabatta.
Yeah, so the oven preheats at 350.
Okay, thanks.
I tried to go on the first evening class, and I don't know but then I'm not anymore. I tried. So easier.
What do you do? I just keep missing things with dogs and kids, and so it's like, long.
Okay, so as you're getting the oven preheated, and we're letting this kind of cook, I'm going to go ahead and grab the zucchini and the peppers, and we're going to toss them in some olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder to mine, and then we're going to put those in the oven because those are going to take 20 minutes. So by the time this is done, they should be about done too. So now I have my zucchini and peppers already cut. I didn't want to cut them too thick, but I didn't want them too thin either. I want them to still have some bite in the sandwich, but be soft enough and easy to eat in a sandwich. Yes.
So it's thin. It's almost like in the shape of the ciabatta.
It might be 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick at most. So let's go ahead and get the olive oil going on here. And we'll go ahead and toss those. Uh, you put it in a little bit at a time into the rice and let the rice absorb it. You just want to keep.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have to stir it at all.
I would, as it starts to absorb the liquid, to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. You don't have to consistently stir it, but I would definitely stir it frequently just to make sure it doesn't stick. Because again, it's going to be very starchy, so that starch will stick to the bottom of the pan. Alright, salt and pepper, our zucchini, and our peppers. I'm adding a little bit of garlic powder to mine. You do not have to do this, it's just my choice. Alright, we're going to put these in our oven and let them bake for 20 minutes. Okay, so those, yes, just sliced pepper and zucchini.
Any seasoning to the roasted vegetables?
I put in mine was salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic powder for the peppers and zucchini. Later on, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh basil to it, and we can. We're also going to use the either whipped cream cheese or feta dip, if you guys were able to find the feta, and we're going to use that as a spread for the bottom of the sandwich. So there's going to be plenty of flavor there. You really don't want to over season the vegetables. Okay, I'm going to see how this is going. Give it a try. See if it's still got a little ways to go. Still pretty firm. We're going to keep it going.
So on our rice, it's very translucent. Is that what it's supposed to look like?
Yeah, it's that's normal for this type of rice, the low protein rice. It tends to get translucent as it cooks. As it settles, it'll get more, white.
Whited. Okay.
So, if by the time you use all your liquid and it's still a little bit on the firm side, you can always add more, either a little bit of water or more broth to it. Sometimes it's iffy as to how much liquid it really needs. So, I always start with 1.5 cups, and if I need more, I just add more as needed. But it's definitely got a lot of flavor in it already from the chicken broth and the onions. You definitely smell the garlic in there. Towards the end, once we're done, I'll shut this off, and then we'll put in the Parmesan cheese and the Italian seasoning, and then it'll be ready to go. So it's pretty simple and basic. Risotto is one of my husband and I's favorite dishes. And so this is why I tried to come up with something that was similar for my daughter, because she always wants to eat it, but it's way too high for her. So I came up with this so she can help me do it, but also enjoy the flavors and everything that goes into the basic dish. I'm almost done with my liquid, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in there. What was left? There we go. If I need more, I will gladly get more.
Risotto is much more of an art than a science, just because it's never a consistent amount of food. So
That's kind of the fun thing when you're just cooking regular food. You can adjust it as needed a majority of the time versus, how finicky baked goods and breads can be.
yeah.
So it's always a lot of fun to cook versus baking sometimes. Because adjustments most of the time can be made, or things can be taken out if there's something you don't like, or added if there's something that you do like. Okay, I'm going to let this finish absorbing the liquid. Then we'll see how firm it is. But you can definitely see the rice starting to become more plump. And it's starting to get nice and full from the liquid. I don't want to tilt it too much, but you can kind of see it's still soupy there. So, still got a little bit more to go.
I almost feel like David's rice was almost like meant for risotto versus like regular rice. Like it seems like it's a very different texture.
Yes, it definitely gets. I mean, the nice thing about this is you don't have to do the whole cook in a pot and then rinse it and then get all the starch out. I mean, you can just make it and go. And then when you if you have leftovers, which you might, you just add a little bit of extra broth or water or liquid to it and heat it up and let it kind of absorb that liquid again, and it should be ready to go.
I know I've made risotto a couple of times with hers, and I didn't even had a lot of vegetables though. Vegetables kind of release additional liquid.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add my Italian seasoning in now. You can use whichever seasonings you guys would like, but I'm going to go ahead and use the Italian. I use 1 teaspoon, adjust where necessary if you guys need to. You can do a little more, a little less. Let those flavors kind of come together. Yep, see, mine is perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off. There we go. I'm sure it's a lot easier to hear now. You can now add which low protein cheese you need. I have the Via Life block. So if you have that, I'm just going to shred some in here. If you have the Follow Your Heart brand, you can add that now. And the cheese is going to help bring it together also. Oh, see, that smells so good.
Is there one that you think tastes more like regular or like reacts more like regular Parmesan?
I like Via Life. There's not any of the Via Life cheeses I've had that I don't like. My daughter loves to even just eat this. And this is a Via Life brand block. You can shave it like regular Parmesan. But the Follow Your Heart one is good too. The Follow Your Heart brand I think tastes the most like it. But the Via Life has a nice texture to it also. So I'm going to move this out of my pan. I don't want it to keep cooking because I don't want it to become mushy. And then I'll let you see the end product here in just a moment. Okay, add a little bit more cheese on top.
This is why you don't add all broth at the beginning too, because
Exactly.
you end up with too much extra.
Okay, so it kind of looks like it's a little bit gloopy, but it's supposed to look that way.
Yeah.
You know, again, it should have a little bit of firmness, but chewiness with it. And as it sits, it will get thicker, and that's normal. So there's the risotto. Pretty simple, and again, you can adjust this any way you like. I'm going to real quickly heat up a little olive oil in a pan and toast my ciabatta that way. And then I'm going to put the cheese on and melt it in the oven, because the cheeses sometimes need the extra heat around it to melt. But I want to get it nice and toasted for the sandwich. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in a skillet. If you guys want to do it in the oven, you're more than welcome to. Just make sure you keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn. With this one, I want the inside of the ciabatta to get nice and toasted, but I still want it soft and chewy on the outside. So I'm just going to put a little olive oil in here real quick. Again, over medium heat. Let that oil heat up a little bit, and then I'm going to let this toast. Still got 9 minutes on our zucchini. I'm going to take a quick peek at it. See if it needs to be flipped. Oh, it smells good. It's cooking nicely. My zucchini's looking good. I flipped the zucchini over. The peppers I just kind of moved around a little bit. But everything's looking really nice and delicious.
So my son does not like low protein cheeses at all. Wait, which low protein cheese do you think has the least amount of tangy flavor?
Well,
He's always hated cheese. It's so weird. We've tried them all, and he hates them. So we just finished the risotto, and we're just doing it without cheese.
and that's all right. I've always liked all the Veal Life, even the Veal Life feta, the cream cheese, their cheese slices. I've liked them all. My daughter, surprisingly, has not been very picky when it comes to cheese, so she'll eat almost anything. As far as melt factor, I know the Chow brand is good for melting.
Yeah.
I also like Veal Life. I think they melt pretty well. You just gotta kind of do it low and slow. Daya, it's hit and miss with me for Daya. It just depends on what it is.
I feel like a lot of the low protein cheeses, they almost get tangier when they're melted versus like when they're cold. So like the chow cheese definitely has more of a sharpness to it when you melt it, but when it's cold, it's a totally different taste, in my opinion. Not really.
I was like, I think we tried them all, and he's just not, unless he just doesn't like cheese. I mean, I don't know.
That's a possibility. This may not be for him, but maybe this dip might help him a little bit as we make this.
Yeah, we couldn't find the feta, but we got the cream cheese, so we're gonna have him try it.
That'll be perfect. The cream cheese will be just as good.
And to let Bridget, just so you know, that the original recipe that Amber had shared with me, they call it for hummus, which is obviously higher in protein. But I know there are like Amber has a recipe for like I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's like a carrot hummus essentially. And then there's also I know Melanie, please mention Melanie, she has made like a hummus using zucchini. So there's different ways to make a hummus if you wanted to like not turn it spread. In the sense of being too much for them flavor wise.
Yeah. So We tried it. It's pretty good.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
It turned out. We think it turned out lumpy like it's supposed to, but it's got good texture and taste to it. So yeah.
Excellent. There we go. I just toasted my ciabatta real quick in a skillet with some olive oil. So I'm just going to let that cool off to the side. I'm going to get this pan out of the way, and then we're going to move into the dip because we're going to need that for our sandwich. So we're going to move into that next. Move this over here. All right. So for the dip, again, if you do not have the feta block, that's okay. You can just use the straight cream cheese. Okay, so I already emptied in, again, I'm using the Vio Life cream cheese, and I'm using all of it because my daughter loves this so much. She's been begging me to make it. So she's going to be very happy when she comes home to eat this because she just scarfs it down. And she loves to take it to school and eat it with the crostini crackers. She loves it.
Oh, that would be a good school snack. I didn't even think about that.
Well, she loves it. So I'm going to take the entire block of the Vio Life. And we're going to break it up. We're going to use a fork to blend it together. We're going to, again, use our fork to mash it.
I learned from Amber's one of her first cooking classes this summer that it mashes a lot better when you definitely leave those things out as she recommends.
Yes, absolutely. Leave it out 30 to 40 minutes prior to using it. Makes it so much easier. And then you don't have to make the mistake of trying to put it in the microwave last minute and it's partially melting and not getting the texture that you want. And if you have a mixer or blender, you could use that to do this too. I just like leaving a little bit of chunky texture to it. So I just like using a fork. It's just one less thing for me big thing to take out and clean. All right, we're gonna blend that all together, and then we're gonna add, again, another clove or two of garlic.
One thing I'll just jump in here and mention, if you have trouble finding the Vio Life products but are interested in trying them, they have a wonderful store locator on their website. And so you can search different stores by different items. So it's wonderful to know that you can search by a specific item rather than just the entire brand.
There we go. That's coming together nice. I have a little extra garlic just because I doubled mine, so I'm gonna add just a little extra into mine.
I don't feel like you can ever have too much garlic, so.
Well, I agree. I don't know if all my family agrees with that, but it always makes me giggle when Samantha says, "Well, I don't like onions, I don't like garlic." I say, guess what? 85% of what you eat has that in it. Are you sure? Yeah. I cook it for you.
Cream cheese, the feta, and garlic so far.
Yes, that's all I've put in so far. There. That's looking really good. Get my garlic out of here. Okay, you can also add just some salt and pepper in there. Again, this is going to be a really big bowl, but this is going to be a really good thing to add to our sandwich too. It's going to have great flavor. The garlic, the salt, the pepper, all going to come together. The fresh basil, when we put it on the sandwich, is going to add a little bit of freshness to it. So it's going to be a great sandwich, and it'll be great just to even keep it open-faced and just eat it kind of that way. Okay, let me get a nice spatula. I'm going to go ahead and get my zucchini out of the oven. Should be about ready. There's the zucchini. is fork tender. We're gonna let that sit and cool on the baking sheet as we finish our sandwich. If you're going to put cheese on your ciabatta bread for the sandwich, you can go ahead and put it on now and stick it in the oven if you're ready. I'm just gonna stick it directly in the oven and keep an eye on it, make sure the cheese melts. So I don't want the bread getting too dried out, so we're just gonna put it in for a minute or two. Okay, so now we're gonna make sure this is all blended together. Okay, I'm trying to pull this into a little pile here, clean up my plate. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, so we're going to create a little well in the middle. That's hard to see, I'm sorry. Like a little well right there. And we're going to stick the honey right there in the middle. Now, if you don't think you would like the sweetness, you can omit the honey completely. It'll still be really good without it, but the honey just adds that little bit of extra sweetness to go with the savory, and it's delicious.
And if you're unsure, you could just leave it on the side and then kind of do a little dip with it, and then see how you like the combination before making the full commitment.
That is very, very true. You can add a little bit of fresh parsley to it. I add a little Italian seasoning. But there you go. And then we can use our crostinis around there. And these this makes for such a wonderful dip. I mean, I enjoyed this myself, so I was definitely eating some of it with her. And then she decided she didn't want to share anymore, so I didn't get any more. And my daughter's 6 years old, so.
And she has been a picky eater in the past.
Very, very, very picky eater. So again, this is double the recipe. Everybody else's will probably look a lot smaller than mine, but that is, there we go for that.
You said she really likes it, so she'll have extra to last her hopefully for a couple days.
Exactly. Perfect. Very good. Nice little dip.
One thing I recommend is when after you open the bag of crostini, they do go like stale pretty quick, so make sure you seal them up really well.
Yeah.
You can still like blend them down and use them though if they do go stale for like breadcrumbs and other things. So
Oh, absolutely.
I never throw low protein bread products away.
Okay, let me check on the bread. Here we go. Okay, there we go. My cheese melted just enough for me. So I'm gonna put that right here. There we go. And again, with the cheese already melted there, I'm just gonna go ahead and put a little bit of this on top of that. Normally I'd put it underneath, but I wanted the cheese to melt with the toasted part. So I'm just gonna use my little teaspoon here with the honey. And I'm just gonna put a little bit on top and spread that. And with the warm bread, it should help this soften up, so it should spread pretty well. I used smoked provolone for my cheese option. I really, really like the smokiness of it. It's just like a different balance of flavors. Okay, so there we go. Got that on there. Now we're going to add our zucchini and peppers to it. Let me grab my...
All the bio-life cheeses are extremely low in protein. Like we're talking like a tenth or less of a gram of protein. Same with the follow your heart cheeses; they're very low.
Yes.
And then if you use chow cheese, that's also very low too. I mean, it's such a tiny amount. So if you like it, they're a great way to, add flavor, calories, and just a nice little additional find that's still very low in protein.
Absolutely. It's always good to be able to find those things where you can get it as you need it versus having to wait and order it,
And it also allows you to kind of mix it up too, like for your sandwiches. So, as she said, there's different seasonings you can add too. So.
All right, some tomatoes here. Again, with as stuffed as these may end up being, you may end up being able to do kind of building two sandwiches really, or you can leave it open faced. So you would toast up another ciabatta and then top them. So there's some tomatoes there. I have some fresh basil. I'm going to put on top. Add some nice color and some fresh flavor. And I like to put a little extra pepper on mine, so. And there's just one example of how you could do the sandwich if you chose to. You can use any vegetable you want. You could thinly slice carrots, little bits of cauliflower florets, maybe toss them in Cajun and play around with it a little bit. There's so many different ways you can do this and season these vegetables.
The ciabatta rolls also make really good, like, paninis too. And if you don't have a panini press, it's not a necessary tool. You can just make it in like a heavy pan with another pan to kind of press down on the top of like a plate to get them to flatten out if you're interested in panini too with the ciabatta roll. So.
Perfect. I was able to get a perfect bite.
Very good.
How's everybody doing? Maybe they're like me, too busy eating.
Quietly enjoying.
He just ate the entire bowl of risotto.
Oh, that's exciting.
He's licking it clean, so I think we have another food in the sandwich.
Excellent.
It's quiet. I think that means he likes it.
Excellent.
He's shoveling it in and saying it's good, so I think he likes it.
Very good.
So how much protein would you say is in this whole meal?
Well,
I did configure it, and it's very low. So for like a whole sandwich, like both sides, we had configured that it was like 1.9 grams of protein. And so one thing I wanted to mention is that the Flavis line, its parent company was Dr. Shar, and Dr. Shar has gluten-free products in the grocery store. So if you have a higher tolerance, they actually have regular gluten-free ciabatta rolls you can find in almost every grocery store, it seems like now. And they're 2 grams of protein per a roll, which would add a little bit more protein. I know when you start having a higher tolerance, sometimes it's walking that line between low protein and high protein, and you're trying to reach that like middle ground. So the gluten-free ciabatta rolls from Dr. Shar, Flavis' parent company, also work really well for this. So the sandwich as is though with the Flavis items is 1.9 grams of protein, and then that includes the whipped feta dip. But then for 2 tablespoons outside of the sandwich for the whipped feta is 0.2 grams of protein, super low again. But I think it's probably very easy to eat more than 0.2, and that doesn't. I don't think that didn't include the first skinny, so you could add a little bit more for that. Not much though. So we're at 2.1 grams of protein. And then for the risotto, let's see here, sorry. The risotto made 3 servings, and each serving was a half a gram of protein. So you're looking at under 3 grams of protein for the entire meal if you eat a serving of each. But these are all, I think, pretty easy to adapt to. So like if you needed to add a little bit more protein, you could try it with the gluten-free ciabatta roll from Dr. Bashar. And regular feta is one of the lower protein cheeses. So if you like